Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We are about to kick off. I'll start off by just setting some housekeeping rules just so that everything runs smoothly today. Brief kind of introduction. My name is Renako Salina. I'm the co-founder of Black Livity China, and we are the ones hosting the event today. We were formed in 2018 with an aim to document and demystify all things Africa China, Caribbean China, and Black in China. And this is part of a series of events that we hope to put on to really educate our community on the opportunities that China holds in an aim to kind of increase our collective power economically. So without further ado, I will just kind of set some, if you are having problems hearing anything, it probably will be on your end. So please do try to make sure your audio is connected. I think, we are not having any sound problems just now. So please do check that. So housekeeping. Please, we want this to be an interactive session as much as possible. So if you are willing to turn your camera on, please do, no pressure if not, but we would enjoy that if that's the case. Secondly, please do mute yourselves. We want to really give ourselves a chance to learn from the panel. We have 4 really amazing, really experienced entrepreneurs. And if you mute yourselves, it will help us to kind of get through the program swiftly. There will be time in the second session to have more of a hands-on engagement. So please look forward to that also. And finally, just a note too, we will be moving on to breakout rooms, which is a function that requires you to sign into Zoom with the email address that you registered with. So if you are not using the email address that you registered with, please send a message to either Saron, that's S-A-R-O-N, you can see her on the chat, or Ines, which is I-N-E-S, and that will help us to just pre-assign you to your group so that we can move swiftly through the program.
My video is not working.
Oh, hello, everyone okay? All right. Okay, let's move on to the program. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 4 amazing speakers and we're really lucky. It's a Saturday. They've dedicated some of their time to really teach us about what they've been doing and how they got started with their businesses in China. So firstly, I'll introduce you to Sam Ananda. Sam, do you want to give us a little wave?
Sure. Hey folks, my name is Sam Ananda. I'm the Business Development Manager of the African Chamber of Commerce and the Director for Carolean International Trading Company out of Shanghai. I've been working in China for the past 12 years, supporting businesses with trade and enterprise development services. We're a business advisor based out of Shanghai, incorporated in 2015. And we work with both state-owned enterprises and the private sector as well, multinationals and SMEs. Today's conversation is support micro and SME businesses, as well as obviously if there are any MNC individuals, give them the business advice that they require to do business in China.
Thank you very much. You actually did my job for me there because I was going to introduce you, but thank you for that. Warren, I will introduce you next. So Warren is, do you want to just give us a wave? I'll just spotlight you, just give us a wave. Yeah, so Warren is the founder and owner of Mei Li Hair, a hair company he started during his 2nd year in China. He first came to China in 2017 and he now resides in the UK, from where he runs his business, which continues to thrive despite his relocation and the current pandemic. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll now introduce Leisha. Leisha, can you give us a wave? Yeah, Leisha is a hair business coach and wholesaler with 6 years of experience sourcing hair in Asia and mastering the Chinese language. She coaches businesses on how to master marketing and stand out on social media for their online brands. Her expertise in Chinese cultural and business practices has earned her a well-deserved reputation in the industry thus far. So thank you very, very much for joining us. And, I've lost, okay, here we go. Samuel, I was just struggling to pin you there. And finally, last but not least, we're joined by Samuel. So Samuel is the founder of Source Ship Sell, SSS, and SSS is based in Dongguan, China. and it provides a one-stop manufacturing solution to companies primarily in the US and the UK. So he first came to Greater China in 2013, and he previously worked for a multinational based in Dongguan, which specialized in print and stationery supplies. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we really wanted this to be an interactive session. So what we've actually started with was a series of kind of myths related to business in China. So I'm going to try to ask you the first. Oops, I think they're asking all of them together. Right, so I think in front of you, you might have a series of questions. Hopefully it's only one. The first of which is, you need to reside in China to do business there. Is that true or false? Does anyone have any opinions, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think just following on the pattern, I'll just go first there. Yeah, that's false. You can hire legal representatives, lawyers, legal firms, business advisories like my own, chambers of commerce. They'll do that business, that registration or that market entry for you. So that's where I would say definitely false on that one.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for weighing in on that matter. Let's move on to the second one. I think you already kind of dealt with that question, and most people so far know that that's false, so that's a good start. The second one, you need a Chinese business partner to do business in China. We hear this all the time. Does anyone else want to weigh on this from the panel?
Can I go?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I definitely think it could help, but it's not necessarily needed at all times. But if you are able to learn a language or have some sort of general knowledge on what you want, then you don't necessarily need a Chinese partner. But it could be very helpful if you have one.
Right. Okay, yeah, I think that deals with that question very well as well, because that's one of the common misconceptions. So thank you for that. And then finally, for now, you can't do business in China without knowing the language. This is another one.
Yeah, I would like to speak on that actually, because even though it's not necessarily essential to have the language, but particularly in Chinese culture, just understanding their language and the different parts of China and how to communicate with them can really break down that barrier between you and them, and allows you to see so much more as a business owner and get so much more access if you didn't have the language. I think I've noticed that the difference between like my first year of doing business in China without the language to actually being able to cultivate those relationships with the language is really different.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really, really useful. Thank you very much. That was just designed to kind of start us with a bit of an interactive quiz to get a bit of an idea of everyone's background and what they think. So we're going to move on to introductions to the panel and finding out more about you guys. So I just want to really set the scene. How did you guys end up coming to China? What made you start on your business journey? And how's it been so far?
I should probably go first then.
Yeah, why not?
So as you've mentioned before, my name is Samuel and I from the UK, British born Nigerian, and I studied in the University of Kent, had a degree in financial economics. Once I graduated from there, I was really trying to find a language skill that would help with moving into the financial sector. And so at the time I studied Mandarin, and that really changed my course of direction. I had the opportunity to live and almost work in Taiwan, and I was able to learn the language and to learn the culture. And coming back from there, there was a lot of opportunity for me to go to China, and I was invited as an expat to work for a multinational company there. So that's the reason for me moving over to China. And at the moment, as you've said before, I run a company based in Dongguan, and the purpose of what we do is to help companies either based in the UK or in the US to have that assurance that whenever we produce a product, it is what it needs to be, so that when it's sold into markets like Amazon or into Walmart or into Target stores, they have the best chance of selling their products.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. The fact that you've been able to do that in your time in China so far. Thank you for that introduction. Does anyone else want to weigh in next?
I can go. So I actually had no idea that I was going to get into business at all when I got to China. I studied French and Spanish at University of Westminster, and I knew that I wanted to do another language that was going to be a challenge. So I headed over to China and I was teaching. But then I would always get people asking me for hair extensions, and that's how I got into the hair industry. But with a few years of doing that and really be able to cultivate those relationships, I started realizing that there's a lot of Black businesses, particularly, that didn't have the same like authority or dominion like in our industry as the production side. I realized there was a lot of information missing of how the production works, how the supply chain goes from the beginning to end. And I just got really passionate about teaching our people in our community how to build generational wealth from this industry. So it doesn't have to just be like a side hustle, but actually you can really create great wealth from it. Sorry.
We're good, no worries. You can hear you.
It's a bit noisy. So yeah, so after I was doing that, I realized that I wanted to expand that, and that's when I got into coaching. So now I work with companies, salon owners, stylists, beauty salon, and communication as well. I'll cut it short because this noise is really loud.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, thank you very much, Leisha. We missed you a little bit at the end, but I think there's points that we can pick up on later. So Sam, would you like to kind of give us a bit of an introduction?
Sure. I'm a chemistry graduate from the University of St. Andrews. I worked in London for Pearson before moving to China, but I had planned to move to China from the year 2005. I'd read in a magazine about Shanghai being the pharmaceutical capital of the world by 2021. I think it already is the pharmaceutical capital of the world at the moment in terms of manufacturing. So I'd already planned to head that way when I was studying. But as with most things, all best laid plans change. And I went to China actually to open up schools. I was working with EdXL at the time, a Pearson company. And I worked in education consulting management for about a year before I realized that my skills lay in business development. So I worked in business development for a construction company that was developing industrial facilities in China. I also worked in education consulting with students who want to study overseas until I started working in trade. Now it was a big switch from sales to trade, but it was something that was, I had mentorship, I had support along the way, and it turns out that I'm pretty good at it. So I joined the African Chamber of Commerce in 2017, and now I've been working with the African Chamber of Commerce for the past 3 years at government, right the way down to SME level. So the journey based upon my network and growing that network in China and overseas.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And Warren, finally, could you tell us your journey so far?
Funny enough, I went to Kent too, just like the Sam that said earlier. I studied English and American literature. So my journey into China was to do teaching. And another funny thing, I actually was speaking to Leisha on the phone when I was making my decision if I should go to China or to Dubai. And I think she helped me convince myself to go to China because I knew that everything is made in China. So I was like, I want to go out there anyway and find something to set up a business. I just wasn't quite sure what it would be, but I knew if I was over there, living there, teaching, I'll get that time to visit and figure out what it is I wanted to do. And I had a bunch of ideas and I had a bunch of stuff that I tried out, but one of them that worked for me pretty successfully was obviously the hair. So that's the one I've been pushing at vigorously most recently. That's my journey into China.
No, thank you very much for that, guys. I guess moving on from that, we really want to kind of delve into the lessons that you've learned so far. Like, you guys have so much experience, but what has been the kind of core lessons or the core teachings that you've realized being here or working in this space? Should we start with Warren, seeing as you're already here?
Yeah, okay. Well, one of the lessons is just resilience, and just really being brave, because there's a lot of, like you said earlier with the questions, true or false, there's a lot of myths and ideas and stigmas around moving to China or going out to set up business in China, and you really have to be brave to take that step. So it's just the one most important for me is just being hard-skinned, and just pushing through and really trying, because China, there's so much stuff there that if you have the passion or the eye for it, you will find something.
Yeah, exactly. Leisha, what about you? Have you found the same thing? What have been your main lessons?
I would say my main lessons being China, like Warren says, is that resilience, because being particularly a Black foreigner, just a foreigner in China, and then making your sort of stand or your mark in your industry can be really challenging, especially with, I mean, Chinese are quite welcoming to do business, especially if you're going to be like a good loyal customer and everything like that. But understanding their cultural communication, like the small things that they do, like when you go to a business meeting, you don't talk about the product straight away. You know, you go out for a tea, or you go and sing karaoke first, and you go and sort of seal the deal that way before you then go ahead and start talking about prices and materials and stuff like that. So really understanding how they do business as opposed to how you want to do it your way, and adapting in that area, in every area. I mean, that's been the biggest learning lesson, because it really changes the way you can build those relationships.
No, completely agree. Samuel, would you add anything differently to that?
Yeah, I think for me, when it comes to the lessons I've learned, I think one of the main things I've learned is about control. And when I say control, I'm talking about the supply chain process in terms of the industry that we work in. Now, there are different aspects of supply chain. For some people or some businesses, they source products. For other businesses, they'll provide designs and concepts which you then need to bring to life. And so depending on where you sit on that spectrum, there are a lot of processes and a lot of controls and systems that you need to put in place to ensure that the client has the best chance of producing a product that will be sold to a third party.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That was really clear and concise, and I think we'll delve into your particular industry in a lot more depth a bit later. So thank you for that taster. Finally, Sam, would you add anything different?
Sure. On top of great advice that the other panelists have provided, I would add network. There's a saying that says your network is your net worth. I think that's one of the most important things to have in China. In China, they have this phrase called guanxi. Guanxi means relationship in China. So your relationship with your friends, your relationship with your colleagues, your business environment, as well as much state level network that you can grow as well. It's really important, because that's what helps you develop yourself, your business, your personal development as well. If you're around people that challenge you, constantly push you, constantly make you get better, then you will get better.
Yeah, thank you very much from that. The next question that I'm going to ask is actually submitted by someone in the audience. So Ethel Tambu has asked you guys, how did you get the advice or legal understanding to get started in China? And this is coming from the perspective of people who have not actually traveled to China. They haven't delved into China as much as you guys have. So what would you advise someone who is trying to get that advice? Should we start with you, Sam?
This is about legal advice, right?
Yeah, the legal advice around getting started in China.
Okay, all right. It's actually not legal that you should focus on, it's finances. Absolutely preparing your visa, your permission to have access to the Chinese market is important. So having a legal representative in China or getting a visa so that you can work in China legally is important as well. Then using that information to your advantage is very important, because there's a lot of red tape on what you can and cannot do as a business. How you are registered as a business gives you the scope of work that you can do. Then in terms of your job, how much time can you move away from your employment to an actual enterprise that you want to develop? So you have to have an understanding of the legalities in terms of getting a visa and what your visa allows you to do, getting a business license and what your business license allows you to do, but then also in terms of the visa and your job and the finances around that to manage your time better.
Thank you for that, Sam. Warren, is there anything that you would add to that?
No, not really. So yeah, it depends on getting your visa sorted out and just knowing what you can and cannot do, because there's loads of different visas to go to China, but you need to be on the correct one if you're going to work over there and explore stuff. So yeah, it is just figuring out what your visa is. But what I did before I went, I just did a lot of Googling and research on the internet, and then asked people who knew a bit more information on it. But there's so many stuff that you can Google that will give you help on that, to be honest.
Okay, thank you for that. Samuel, I wondered, particularly considering that many people have not been to China just yet, do you have any advice that you'd add to these tips so far?
I think the advices given by the other panelists have been pretty accurate. I think it's just to reiterate that whatever visa that you go with, you ensure that you apply to the correct visa and to make sure that you are actually working based on that visa. The problem that you don't want to get into is to go on a visa and not comply by those rules, because the problem would be very detrimental to you. So I think it's just making sure that you're doing things according to law, making sure that it's correct.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, there are, obviously I'm working with the African Chamber of Commerce. So if you are a person tuning in from Africa, we offer those kinds of information, but not from outside. If you're not from Africa, there are chambers of commerce, there are business associations, there are various established, even the Chinese website, a specific website for foreigners who want to apply for visas that you can access. It's in English as well, so you'll be able to have the kind of documents you need and so on before you apply for a visa and have access to it.
Perfect. I mean, kind of following on from this, we want to move on and look at the challenges. I think one of the greatest areas of concern around doing business in China is how difficult is it going to be? So I wondered, with your collective experience in mind, have you found any challenges? What have they been? How have you kind of managed to circumvent them? Samuel, would you like to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I think if you're ever going to look into doing business in a foreign country, I think there's a number of things that you need to take into consideration. And this is coming from someone who did not have this in mind at the time. One of them would be ensuring how do you move money in and out of a country. And I say that because there are some countries that there isn't a problem where you are able to move money from one currency to another currency. Now, China is a bit different because they play by a different economic system. And so with that, it may be hard to get money in and it may be hard to get money out. And for some people, it might not be that problem. But if you're moving large amounts of money, for example, you're working with a company and they provide a PO, and that PO needs to be transferred to manufacturers, you would then need to look, okay, how can I do this? Is it possible for me to do this? What opportunities are here? What are the costs in terms of tax? Do I need to look into places like Singapore or Hong Kong? And so that would be, for me, one of the things that I would stress people look into.
Thank you very much. And I mean, Leisha, I know that what you do is actually provide opportunities and kind of provide coaching for businesses that are just starting out, and more experienced ones as well. So what would you say are the biggest challenges?
I think it's advising my customers on how to deal with China without actually having been there. So like explaining them as much as I can in depth, like how to communicate with them, when you place an order, how much you should try to order in order to keep up that relationship. And because China is very much, it's all about sort of money in, money out kind of thing. If you're ordering a lot of kilos all the time, you're going to be a much higher ranked customer than someone who sort of says they want to order, inquire, but doesn't actually come back to place that order. It just doesn't look good for your business or anything like that. So just really understanding like what they expect as a huge factory, like what these factories doing, how the process works. That's been really important.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I think following on from that, a lot of the questions that we've received so far
add to that, because I
very quickly, please, because we just want to move on.
Yeah, I just want to add that it's really important actually that you got to separate the two, because there's things that you need is like a personal person coming across. For example, the currency is an issue, visa is an issue, rental agreement, where you're going to stay, where you're going to live, and then actually understanding like the laws of China. China is not the same as overseas. Don't try to go over there thinking that it's a democratic country. It's not. So that's really important. And then I would, as a new person coming in, work with an agent or a business advisory. There's the markets are changing really, really quickly. Something that happens in like 6 months changes after another 6 months. So yeah, just work with somebody who actually knows these changes very quickly. Anyway, please.
Thank you for that, and for keeping it concise as well. So one of the challenges that many people face on the outside is learning how to market their services abroad, whether that's from outside of China to the Chinese market, or from within China to outside markets. So I guess some of you guys will have experience doing this. Does anyone want to weigh in on how they can do that? This question was submitted by Joseph and Dumia.
Yeah, so in terms of marketing, right? The question's about marketing. Yeah, so there's a lot of misconceptions. A lot of people think that they can just ask an agent or a business advisory or somebody in China to get their goods for them. That's especially without a budget. That's very difficult. A lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of research that's involved. There's a lot of quality control that's involved, and there's a lot of travel involved. So if you're entering the market, you have to have a good enough budget, and also the scale at which you're entering is important. So if you just want to put like a pinky or a toe into the market, I think your budget should be less than 100,000 RMB, maybe around 50,000 would be good. And then if you're thinking of an actual strong market entry where you're trying to enter a specific city, then you should be looking at around 200,000 to 500,000 RMB as your marketing budget. And then if you actually are a multinational corporation who wants to tap into various cities, remember there's 623 cities in China. You should work with the various specific agencies that are made for that purpose. The Chamber of Commerces that are available provide those market entry services, and you're looking at a budget of upwards of 500,000 K, so that's about 60,000 pounds. So then you're going towards the million RMB. You're talking about attending expos.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Just because we are aware that everyone in attendance is coming into this from different levels and different points of entry, so that we don't scare anyone off, I'd love to hear about kind of what you can do as a self-starter, as a beginner with less startup capital. Leisha, do you have any thoughts on this?
I actually really love this topic, because marketing is really just understand the psychology of the customer that you're trying to market to, and it's more about that conversation that you want to create to have that engagement. And I really use a lot of social media to do that, so whether it be running Facebook advertising or your LinkedIn or your Instagram, there's just, the world is online, so I market outside from China out, so to the west, and you can really get started with pretty much not much. Like if you want to do drop shipping, especially, so you can just get the goods directly from the factory without you having to hold on to this inventory. And when you learn and understand how to market to the correct audience you're trying to target, you can do it so effectively using social media for really little. So
That's a really good point, actually, I think, with the social media there. I know, Samuel, you were going to weigh in on this. I don't know if you had anything to add there.
Yeah, I think the viewpoint that I was coming from is, regardless of what industry you're in, the aim of what you're trying to do is to find the crack in the wall, so to speak. And that is to find the opportunities where people lack or people have overseen. And so for us at Sourceship Cell, what we did was, when we first started, I was based in China and I used to fly out to America and fly out to the UK. And when I met these prospect clients, which was either at trade shows or at meetings that I set up, we provided something that other clients could not, or other companies could not provide. And one of those things were, I was someone who spoke the language. I was someone who understood the culture. I was someone who was full-time based in China. And so they had that assurance that, okay, if something does happen, it's not just an agent that's trying to correct the issue. I'm going to be there. My team is going to be there to make sure that if anything does happen, we'll find a way to resolve it before that is then shipped out.
Right, correct. Thank you very much for that. And finally, Warren, was there anything that you'd add?
I think, fortunately, you don't have to have a major budget because, like Leisha said, you can use social media. It just depends on who you're trying to reach. But the world is online, and you can find the crevices and the cracks of where you want to market into. And then if you don't necessarily want to go out to China, you can, and you're based in the UK or America, you can order or purchase bits, check them out, see if that's what you want to do, try it out, see if it works, and maybe order a small quantity, see how quickly you sell that, and then order another larger amount before you then take the trip to China or whatever to start buying massive bulks or ordering massive bulks. You can do it little bit by little bit before putting in that big investment.
Right. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I think that really leads us into the final part of part one anyway, which is looking forward, looking at the future of your industries and just doing business in China or with China. Is there anything that you guys expect to change? What should new people kind of trying to get into this space be aware of? What are the new trends, that kind of thing?
For my particular industry, for the hair industry, a lot has been changing. You know, China and India were really the dominant forces in the hair industry, and it's moved to places like Cambodia and Vietnam, Indonesia and Philippines and things like that. So I think as that starts to expand, there's going to be a lot more opportunity for other industry, like other people to come in. Like I really want to have my own, like a Black-owned hair factory, you know, and I think that is something that can completely be, you know, achieved, because just understanding how the sort of the production side works, yeah, it gives you that sort of leverage. So it's really changing a lot, and especially with the supply of human hair. Like there's not as many women who want to cut their hair as there was originally. Some women don't want, they want to keep their long hair, and that's something that we're having to work out a lot. So there's some factories that would mix a lot of animal hair or synthetic fibers inside of the human hair for it to, and still pass it off as raw hair material when it isn't. So those are things to look for, how to identify real hair and the lace and everything like that. So yeah, it's definitely changing.
Yeah, that's really exciting as well, what you said about the factory. I think that would be amazing. Samuel, what about you?
I think when it comes to what we do, there is a large shift in companies and factories, so to speak, moving outside of China and moving to other areas in Asia. And that would be either in Vietnam, in India, or even across the board, where we're talking about places like Mexico and even in the States in some circumstances. And the reason for that is because of the current relationship between USA and China. Now, those two players are the biggest players in the world, okay? And so with some of the products that are coming out from China, there is, let's say, 60, 70, 80% tax on the existing product. So let's say, for example, you're buying a product which costs £1. With the current laws that have happened now in the current trade that's currently in, you probably have an additional 80% on that. And so because of that, that makes it harder for second party and third party companies to be able to absorb that cost and still sell it into the market with a markup. And so within our industry anyway, there's a large sort of trend going on at the moment where people and companies are moving, which is factories as well as agencies like myself, they're moving outside of China and they're moving to places like the USA, they're moving to places like Vietnam, India. And so I think moving forward, you will see that supply chain not just being in China or being spread out across different countries.
Okay, thank you very much for that. It was really insightful. So Sam and Warren, moving on to you, I guess another added question, judging from what Samuel has said, is China still the place to be when it comes to business?
Absolutely, I would say yes. China is growing. If I read this week that it is the largest economy in the world. I think it just overshadowed America just this week. But yes, I would say China is extremely important, especially after what's been going on with the COVID-19 crisis. There's a saying about catching a cold. So if China gets a cough, the rest of the world catches a cold. That's how important China is. And as you can see that China got COVID-19, now the world is completely paralyzed. So it's a very important market to be involved in. I think that as as a company, you've got to use the trade initiatives that are available so you can get some state support. Remember that countries make their money from exports. So exporter, you are extremely highly valuable to your country, to your nation as an exporter. So there will be trade initiatives, there will be incentives, there will be subsidies for your organization in exporting products. So use those initiatives to grow your market. Just two more things here. I'll be really quick. Time is money. Absolutely, you come in here and free, but time, you have to pay for where you live. You have to pay for the marketing that you do, even viral marketing. You have to have access to the network. WeChat is a guanxi-based system, so you have to know these people, and knowing these people costs money. So you have to.
Really quickly there, can you just explain what WeChat is, because some people might not know?
Yeah, sure. So there are a number of different apps for people to create or organize or network communities. One of the most used apps is WeChat, which is a social media app that allows people to network, communicate, share their business ideas, business organizations, different channels on the app allow you to share your business, your personal brand to different communities. But again, as I said, you have to network with the right people. You can't just jump in there and start making money. You have to be involved in groups. Groups are organized little small channels with 500 people. And then you have to be added to other groups. So, you have to know these people. These things cost. And I think the budget is £6,000. It's definitely, that's what you would need. And as an organization, you are more recognized than you are.
Yeah, thank you very much for that and that explanation as well. Warren.
Could I just add in a little bit about WeChat?
Yeah, of course.
If possible. Yeah. So WeChat is also used to it's really good because you can buy so much stuff on it. In China, some of the jobs I did, I could get paid via WeChat. So you would get WeChat money. You can I booked my plane tickets back and forth from China to England. You can book train tickets. You can book movies. Like, it's literally everything that you would need on one app. It's really good. It's a really good app. And obviously it's heavily used by the Chinese people. So it would be something really useful for you to get if you was thinking about investing or doing business in China. Having that app, it also translates actually. When people speak in different languages, it translates it to the language of your preference. So it's a really good app in communication. But as far as the question was, is China still the place to be? I believe so. China make so much stuff that, like I keep saying all the time, that there's a gap in the market that you just have to search for, and I guarantee that it will be being produced in China. Or if it's not being produced in China, you can find somebody who can then create it for you. So I still think China is the place to be.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect note to kind of go into the last of our audience submitted question for this part. So Elder Damina, who is in the audience, has asked, are there any opportunities that you'd encourage those starting out to get into? I mean, everyone has kind of said that China still is the place to be. So what should they be looking into if they haven't yet kind of embarked on their business journey? Yeah, we just asked that this one is a bit concise, please, in answers.
I think you should be looking at products that have a good margin. You should be looking at products that have a high demand. And the reason I'm speaking very loosely is because I don't believe there's one type of product that makes money. There is a lot of type of products for a lot of different countries, a lot of different industries, and a lot of different groups of people. And so I think it's more of the characteristics of what you're doing and how you're researching to ascertain whether the product you're sourcing and selling into another market is profitable or not.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Lisha, do you have anything to add?
I think that the way that the world is going now, everything is online. And I grew my online business in a few years and became really profitable from it. And I really think, and I push anyone who has a physical location or wants to only have brick and mortar to reach your online, because that is absolutely the biggest shift that's happening globally. So definitely, yeah, being online is important. And then for anyone who's come over to China or who wants to come to China, again, I think Samuel said it earlier, or Warren, that to before you start investing in wanting to come to the factories or seeing all the supply chain, like learn how to make sales, like learn how to market first and learn how to sell a product, and before you then take that investment and embark on doing more sort of research.
Thank you very much. Sam, if you have a quick remark on that before we move on to the breakout rooms.
Yeah, my answer is very short. Black Livity, that's the answer. Black Livity China, the information that you require there, you learn about the different communities there, and then once you have access to Black Livity, you'll be able to meet guys like Warren, Lisha, Samuel, and me. Black Livity China.
Yeah, I have to agree on that. Absolutely. Oh. You guys are giving us the world access and understanding that we wouldn't normally have.
Thank you guys for saying that. I'm taken aback. I was gonna blush, but yeah, thank you very much for saying that. I think if no one has any more to add to this section, thank you very much for the insights. And what we're going to do now is break it down further into small groups. So this will allow us to focus on areas loosely relating to the hair and beauty industry, to drop shipping, and then also to import-export. I would like to stress to everyone though that our panelists have a combined total of over 30 years experience, and this taps into many different industries. So we will be talking about these areas loosely, and you'll have a chance to ask questions as well, but we will also be kind of expanding beyond that. So just give us a second to sort you into your groups. Anyone who is using a different email address might have to turn their mic on and just explain what they're most interested in. And yeah, we will reconvene afterwards.
Any black businesses, because that's really, it's a huge market there, and they too have demand rather than just taking goods from there to export to the world. I wondered if you knew of any groups who are actually successfully, exporting to the Chinese market.
So that's a very good question. I don't actually have an answer for that, because the industry that we work with, to be very frank, I'm probably one of the only black people in that industry.
Yes.
So there's different types of sourcing and manufacturing agencies out there. Now, when people specify on sourcing, it's normally they find an existing product, they put their logo on there, potentially package and redesign the package and then sell it over to somebody else. So that's what sourcing is generally about. And when we talk about manufacturing, we're talking about sourcing the raw materials, then taking it to one factory to either, let's say for example, it's I don't know, hats.
Yes.
You would source the materials from one factory. That factory would then send it to a second factory who would then provide the embroidery. That factory would then take it to another factory who would do something else. That factory would then take it to another factory to do the assembly and then ship it out. So, so the products that we actually produce are OEM products, which are products that a company or an individual has considered on. They will then bring that to us, and then they're then bringing that product to life. And so that's pretty much what we do. And so for that particular industry, which is where we are, I am currently not aware of any Black people in that industry. That's not to say that they're not in there, but
Okay.
And so to answer your question, products that are in, I think if you go onto the UK import and export website, they will show you a breakdown of imports coming out, imports and exports, and it will give you a list of the products and how much in terms of USD is being imported or exported out of that place. Okay.
Yeah. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Okay, so I'm just going to go from the top, and I'm going to be as quick as I can. So there is a question from Lordan. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And that question is, when getting started, are there any particular advantages being based in China? I'm currently in the US and weighing the option of moving to China to get started. There are a lot of advantages being in China. I think for us, the reason why we've grown so quickly is because we are based in China. I think a lot of companies that do what we do, they will have a team in China, but the person who owns the business isn't necessarily based in China. And so because of that, it then makes things, it's not to say that that is a bad option, but I think there's always a good, better, and best. And I think the best scenario is to be based there, to control the supply chain process, to manage the team, to ensure that they're using systems and processes in order to successfully produce a product and ship it over to the client. If you're able to do that, there is a lot of potential to scale, and there is a lot of potential to grow your business. At the same time, if you are also able to implement systems and processes based where you are, so say for example, you're in the United States, you can still use the opportunity to meet clients face to face. And then if you have a back-end support team, you then provide that information, provide designs, provide details for them to execute the product or execute the project. Okay, so me personally, I would say being based in China is the better option until you're able to scale out and to implement systems and processes that allow you to not be there. So that's what I would potentially suggest. That's a good question. There's another question from Abeyo Lewis. And that question is, what advice can you give about funding a startup while you are based in China? So let me think about that. What advice can you give about funding a startup while you're based in China? Would you be able to elaborate more on that question and specify in terms of what aspects funding would be required? So if you send a follow-up message, I'll come back and address that. Second question is from Marva. When thinking about importing from China to the Caribbeans, what are some of the things that one should be aware of first? I would say if you are importing from China into the Caribbean, I think you need to ensure that the factory you're working with is a factory that you trust, a factory that has your back, a factory that wants to work with you for the long term, a factory that is producing products based on what you've agreed, a factory that will produce a product that you'll be satisfied with, a factory that allows you to grow in terms of providing prices that are favorable for you. So I think there are a lot of things that you would need to see and to ensure to enable you to successfully import into the Caribbean. I think one of the problems that you may have is if you're not based there, what you don't want to do is you don't want to spend, let's say, X amount of money, you import it to where it's supposed to be, and then you open it and realize that 50% of what you've imported are defects. If you have that, especially in a cash flow sort of business, that could really put your company under. And so there are ways that you can implement and avoid that. But as I said again, I think the majority of them, in my personal opinion, would stem from being based in China. What else would there be? I think exchange rates, in terms of volatility. I would also say trust in partners. If you're working with a partner, to ensure that you're transparent, you believe in one another, you trust one another, you're honest with one another, and you're not trying to cheat the other person. Okay, next question from Danielle. So I'm currently a teacher in China, and I'm interested in providing educational services to schools as my own business. Any idea of where I can start the process? That's a very good question. Unfortunately, I'm not from the educational industry. I would say reach out to Sam. Sam has experience in, as he mentioned before, he has experience in that industry. What I would suggest is reaching out to people who have or who are currently in that industry. I don't want to provide insights that may not be valuable to you, so I wouldn't be able to comment on that. But what I can do is I can reach out to Sam and I can have him provide you an answer for that. Next question is from called AL20. Hello, I'm already in China working as a teacher. I want to start this business, but I have no idea where to start. I've got some basic ideas, but haven't decided which product or what business. Any idea? I think this is a very good question. I think a lot of people have this question as well. My personal opinion is there isn't one type of product that's going to make money for you or for your business. So I would say you either do one of two things, which is to provide a service, and that allows you to explore many types of products. And then you then market that to potential customers wherever they're based, whether that's in the West, whether that's in Africa, whether that's in Australia, wherever that may be. Or you conduct some research, which is either from Amazon or from government websites, so the largest sort of products being in. Then do is you find 2 or 3 categories, you work and find trade shows where there are businesses hosting products, and you pitch a service to them. That's literally how we started. We went to places like New York, California, Atlanta, Georgia, Utah, I think Los Angeles as well. And we basically went to these trade shows day in, day out, and we're literally pitching our services, and that's how we started to grow. And so I don't think that there is a limit in terms of what you can do. What I do believe is that you need to have a plan. And what you should do is you have a plan, you work on that plan, and then you listen to the market and hear what they want. You align your services to what the need and demand is. Okay, so I hope that's answered your question. So there's another question from Vanessa Frimpong. I believe I know who this person is, so hope you're doing well, Vanessa. The question is, hi Samuel, my question is, what are the key factors I need to take into consideration for choosing suppliers in China? For example, specifically in the stationery market. Well, that's a very good question. What key factors do you need to take into consideration? I think one of the things that you can do is, when you're speaking to factories and you're trying to vet out which factories to work with, the best thing to do is to ask which markets they sell into, what companies they work with, and what can they offer. I think if you look at the companies that they work with, you can go into Google, you can research them, and you have a look at their products. If you have a look at their products and you see that they're good products that have high quality, products that look reliable, then that is a source that will tell you that this factory does have good capabilities. Other things that I would do as well is I would look at the certifications that they have. So if, for example, a factory is working with Walmart, Walmart requires these factories to have a Walmart certification. If you're going into the EU, there are certain certifications you need, which is FSC, which provides companies with the assurance that this factory complies with ethical standards in Europe. You have things like FDA, which provides the assurance that the paper or whatever products you have is compatible and is compliable with safety standards in America. So there's so many different ranges of certifications that you may look at. But I think the point is that you use those sort of questions to understand what capabilities and what previous experiences the factory has had in a particular market. I think in addition to that, in relation to stationery, if you want to send me a message later, I can address that and we can go into a different topic there. So there's another person called Kelvin. I want to start a business in Ghana. I want to know how to get suppliers from China. So there are factories in China that specify and tailor their services to the African market. I think one of the things that you need to be aware of, I'm not sure for Ghana too much, but I know for Nigeria, how easy it is to clear goods from the customs port. I know with Nigeria, there is a set price, but sometimes depending on the products, you may need to work with other agencies to be able to clear goods there. And that means that you have to factor that cost into your unit price. So that's one thing that you would need to understand and to be aware of. The other thing is currency. Are the clients that you work with, are they going to pay in cedis or they're going to pay in USD? And how does that work when you're working with factories? Does the factories allow you to pay in cedis or do they want to be paid in USD? The likelihood is they want to be paid in USD, but how easy or hard is it for you to be able to receive dollars? Do you have a bank account that allows that to be received? Are you able to send cedis or convert cedis into USD? What are the pros and cons of doing that? And so those are the sort of things that I would look at. I would also look at companies in Ghana who have supply chain businesses, import-export businesses based in China with offices based in Ghana with offices in China, and see what they're doing. Pretend that you're a customer and speak to them and say, okay, what is it that you need to do? If I want to bring a product into the UK or into Ghana, what sort of things should I be looking out for? And take notes. I think if you're able to do that, that will then give you some sort of idea as to what is currently being done. And then you can then use that to improve your services when you're pitching these ideas to potential customers. But these are good questions. I wish I thought about these when I started my business. So there's another question from Joseph. And Joseph asked, what are the legal procedures required to start up? And should I get registered in China or my country? Are there any tax payments that are involved? I think this question is a very good question, but I think it really comes down to what sort of business are you trying to set up? That's number one. Number two, if you're setting up a business in China, what are the tax implications? I know for China, if you're setting up a business in China, there is a tax of potentially 16 to 35%. And that out of the company account. So say, for example, you pay money into a Chinese account, there is a tax on that. When you pay out, there is also a tax on that. At the end of the year, you also have to pay a tax on that. And so most businesses in China don't actually have a company account in China. What they do is they have a set one up in Hong Kong, they set one up in Singapore, or they set one up outside of China. They have multi-currencies that allow them to trade with businesses inside China. Okay, so I may be going off on a tangent here, but I think what you need to do is you need to understand if it's necessary to do it, and that will vary based on the industry you're in. And then you need to look at the cost benefits of doing that as well. Okay, there's another question by, I believe it's pronounced Nedene. I'm sorry, I've not pronounced that correctly. The question is, I'm presently in China, however, I operate technology business in Jamaica. However, it's very difficult to ship things. Are there any specific procedures involved in exporting? The answer is yes. And it depends on what you're shipping out. If you're shipping out a particular product, you need to work with a shipping agent in China. One of the things that I learned very early in my business is you want to work with partners that have skills and expertise where you don't. So where you are weak, you want to strengthen that area by working with someone who is skilled in that area. And so what we did was we started working with shipping agents in China, and we used to just use and understand their skills and use their thought leadership to understand how we can resolve questions and concerns that we have. Okay, and so with companies and agencies in China, I think one of the things that you'll be blessed with is a lot of companies, once they believe in what you're doing, they will be more than willing to provide questions to, well, provide answers to questions that you have. And so to do that, I would look at, I would research Google and look at agencies in China and start contacting them and see what sort of answers they can provide. In terms of shipping into Jamaica, I haven't done that before, so I can't provide you specific answers, but how I would go about this is to work with agents who have shipping facilities and shipping routes into Jamaica, and then see if you can use them for thought leadership. Okay, next question is from Abel Lewis. It says, I meant in regards to funding, would it be strictly based on your savings or accumulated capital or access to loans? Okay. So when I started my business, I used savings because I wasn't entirely sure that I wanted to take out a loan. At the same time, I had sufficient savings to start up the business. And so I used savings to start up my business. And what I did was I stayed in China, where it's relatively cheaper than staying in the UK. And I basically used the money I had to fund the business. Because I was already in that industry, I had a decent idea on the things I should be doing to ensure that the money that I've spent or the money I've invested into the business will be fruitful. And so what I would suggest is, if you do have the ability to take a loan out, that might be something you would consider. If you have savings, that would also be something that you consider. I think the answer is you need to look and weigh up the cost. I don't want to say use savings. I don't want to say use a loan. I would say weigh up the cost and benefits, and then have a detailed plan. Write out a business plan and specify, let's say £1,000. Where is the £1,000 going to go? What is the predicted revenue you would generate, and how long is it going to take you to receive your initial investment plus a return on that investment? If it feels like you're going to make a loss, then hold off for that money and think about other things you can do that will then help you and give you the best chance of not only making that money back, but being able to grow from there. Okay. Pamela. Okay, I'm from the Barbados. I source products from the Caribbean market. I'm based in Shenzhen. Have many ideas for expanding Caribbean markets and bridging the gap. My query is how to find investors for my ideas. This is a good question. This is something that I've not actually done. I've not actually had external investors invest in my business. And the reason for that is because once you present your business out to external investors, you also give away control of your business. So that means that there may be certain decisions that you may not be able to make because you've now enabled investors to come in and to come in with their skills, to come in with their know-how. And so, unfortunately, I can't give you an answer because I've not done this before, but I would say Google would be the best, the go-to place for now. I think as with any investor, what they want to see is they want to see how much they need to invest and how much they're going to receive back from that investment. If you don't have something set up now, maybe it might be worthwhile trying it out and seeing if what you're going to do is profitable. And then once you've got to a stage, let's say, for example, you've got to a 1 year mark, then you then pitch that idea to investors and say, look, this is the gap in the market. This is how we're going to address the market. And this is what we've done so far. This is how much we've grown. This is how profitable or how we foresee the profits to grow. And we're really trying to incorporate an investor to help us scale and help take our company to somewhere else. Okay, so that's how I would approach it. As I said again, I've not actually done this before, but I think that would be the way that I would approach it. Okay. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, another question. I think this might be the final question, actually. It says, my name is Hasfa. I'm currently preparing for my move to China. Whilst I'm out there, I would love to bring my fashion ideas, clothing life to life. Do you have any advice or ideas on how I can achieve this? Yes, I do. I would say if you have ideas and concepts, China would be one of the best places for you to bring those ideas to life. There are so many different clothing and apparel factories based in China. And they're not only big factories, there are those that are accustomed to small companies as well. And so I don't think that would be a problem at all. I think there are a lot of resources available. You can go to global sources, you can go to AliExpress, you can go to Made in China, you can also go to Alibaba, and those resources will be one of the first resources you would go to. Second part of that question is, I would also love to export to other countries such as Nigeria, Ghana. Do you know of any factories that specialize in making tubes and customized packaging for skincare businesses? So we actually do packaging as well. So I started off in a printing and packaging factory. So we used to work with companies like Target, companies like Disney, Walmart, QVC, HSN. So we did a lot of packaging there. And so if you want to send me a message later on, I'm more than willing to provide any resources that will help you make that decision. Okay, I think I've got a message coming from Renato. Bear with me 1 second.
I actually asked a question.
Did you ask a question?
Yeah, I asked a question. I can read it if you want.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, because I was just curious. I mean, like, obviously you had a lot of startup capital from your savings, but some of us are not so good with savings. So I'm wondering what would you have done if you didn't have as much in your piggy bank, if you like? What would you have done instead?
What I would have done is because at the time I had two minds, which was to come back to the UK or stay in China. And so one of the reasons why I did take that risk was because China has a very relatively low standard of living in terms of it's not expensive. And because of that, the money that I had was able to stretch me so far that I could basically make ends meet until something good happened. And so if you're really passionate about doing business and you are a risk-loving person like myself, I would say trial it. I wouldn't suggest that you spend everything you have, but spend what you're comfortable with and use that to grow your business. I think if you're based in China, you have an advantage because your burnout rate, which is the money you have left in your savings before you basically deplete, should be able to sustain you longer than you being based in either United States or United Kingdom or other countries. Okay, so the answer is if you want to do it, absolutely go ahead with it. But don't spend everything you have and use what you have to basically grow. I think that would probably be one of the suggestions that I have. Okay. I think there's a last question here. Okay, I think there's one here. Early in the call, you said we have the option of also providing services as a business model. Are you speaking of business consultancy, accounting, legal, marketing services for businesses aiming to enter the Chinese market? So what I'm referring to is services in terms of you run as an agency. So rather than a company based in the United States or United Kingdom or the Caribbean placing an order directly with the factory, if you have presence on ground and you have the know-how to do it while based in China, you can run as a middleman, quote unquote, and rather than the client provide the factory the purchase order, they can provide it to you, and then you will work with the factory to ensure that the product is completed and shipped out on behalf of the client. And so it's working as an agency or as a middleman, so to speak. In addition to that, I would say whatever sort of know-how you have based in China, you can also leverage that to grow your business and expand your customer base for companies overseas. So that's not just attributed to the import-exporting industry. I think it's probably one of the easiest because the barriers to entry are relatively easy or easier compared to accounting, compared to legal, where you would need to know laws and you would need to be able to work with other agencies within China to get that done. Okay, so I'm sorry I wasn't able to complete all your questions, but those are the questions and answers for today. Thank you very much.
We will just go back to the main group now. And Samuel, you have lots of thanks coming in as well. So.
Thank you very much, everybody.
I'll be talking a little bit about dropshipping. I'm actually been working as a commodities broker for the past 2-3 years now. So dropshipping is pretty much commodity brokering, but on a very, very small micro scale. That's pretty much the gist of what dropshipping is. I'm going to share my screen so you can have access to a small presentation I made about dropshipping and some of the work I do in dropshipping. Just a moment, let me see if I can share my screen. Everybody should be able to see that. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So, right. So with dropshipping, I guess I'll start off with myself, just a little brief introduction about me. I quite amusingly, my for dropshipping is exactly the same as Samuel Balaji's. It's also source and sell. We are not related at all. So with my company, I work with 3 different sectors. So that basically means I have customers, I have suppliers, and then I have a business system to bring the 2 organizations together. So let me explain what that particularly means. So I will aggregate customers, and these customers will be your end user. For my dropshipping, which is booze related, so I sell rum. I will aggregate customers via a DJ site. So people will go to this website for events. They'll go to parties, and naturally, because you're going to a party, you're going to want some beverages. So the customer will make a purchase on my system, and it's a shopping cart that pops up on the website, and the purchase will be. Sorry, somebody just said no. Okay, all right, well, no problem. I'll continue. So the purchase will be made for the bottle of rum that they want to purchase, and then the order will go I'll send the order over to the supplier. Now, my job is to aggregate the different orders. On a specifically busy day, I'll have up to 1,000 orders of rum for different parties. So I will talk to the supplier about these different orders, negotiate a wholesale price for that particular order that's being made, because I'll have the retail price. The margin between the retail and the wholesale will be my profit. And I'll make that order directly from the supplier and use their logistics to ship postage and package to the customer. So that's pretty much the business model of drop shipping explained. My pros and cons are, it's very, very easy to get set up. It's you know, you can use as long as you have access to an aggregator, then it's very easy to get orders. You can use influencers, you can use people who are people who have parties like I do, or you can use other means by which you can bring different customers together. For example, Black Livity China is a community organization. So they bring people who want to buy your things already. So once you have this network of buyers, it's very straightforward to then provide them with the service that they require. And those are the various other advantages in that slide. But I think what's quite interesting as well is the lack of the disadvantages there you can use to your advantage. So when people say you don't have any control over the stock, that's perfectly fine, actually. What the buyers need is a specific bottle, in my case, a specific bottle of booze for an event. She can offer them different bottles of booze. When you talk about no control over the delivery, well, then you can add your logistics cost to the retail price. So customers, because they're so motivated to get their bottle of booze, they won't really mind about the particular cost of that bottle, as long as it's not too expensive. It won't affect your margins too much. Okay, so yeah, if you have any questions about my first two slides there, just chime in. I'll try to see if you've raised any hands or if you have any comments. Otherwise, I can move on. I'll take obviously the people who speak up. Everyone's muted. Is everyone shy? Don't be shy, guys. This is fairly straightforward method of doing business. So, okay, fine. I'll have to continue then. Source and sell. We've been in business for about a year. We focused on the need for booze. We focused on the need for people to feel happy during this crisis. So with the demand for alcohol, which has been growing ever since 2017, especially online retail of alcohol purchase, we've been able to provide customers with the alcohol they need for the specific events that they need. My job is really just to aggregate. I'm the broker in this transaction. I take orders, retail, and then I purchase wholesale. That margin is how I make my money. And with the demand for booze, a bottle of booze, for example, could go for 30, 40 to 50 pounds, but the retail cost of that booze could be 10, 15 pounds. So that margin is quite comfortable, especially if I'm getting between 100 to even up to 1,000 customers for every event that is taking place. So another advantage of drop shipping is the platform that you use. You're able to collect a wealth of information on the different customers, and to do this, you'll be able to sell that information on. So you obviously not the encrypted information of the buyer, but certain trends, for example, when customers buy, gender, profile, what kind of items they are purchasing in terms of the types of booze that they buy. So this kind of information is of extremely high value to the suppliers who can use that information to improve their product. So there's a lot of different ways that you can generate revenue from dropshipping. Also, as a business, you can support local industry. So different local suppliers, you'll be able to help them out, and in doing so, you'll get the influence required with the various stakeholders, business associations, and so on. So there's a lot of giving back to the community as well. Okay, and obviously during this crisis, to be able to provide your local community with the solutions they require in terms of accessing different markets, you'll be of use to them. That is obviously not something that perhaps you would be if you just started off without a strategy. So I think in terms of accessing that market, providing that solution, understanding what the customers locally need, and then providing that on a very, very low budget is how I would recommend you start your dropshipping business. All right, I'll go back to the main screen, and I'm hoping you guys have questions. I see that there's a chat here. Oh, okay, yes. So one of the most important, I see here a question from Prosper Nicholas. So please explain your shop on your websites where you aggregate your clients' orders. Do I need a website to do that? So absolutely. You do need a terminal. So a terminal is an access point for your end user to purchase retail to your offer. So it's not necessarily a website that you require, but a platform. You require a platform. So I use the platforms from the card acquirers. You can use PayPal. I use PayPal. There's Evo. There's eShops that you can set up, and each of these various terminals, you can actually access them from social media. So your social media already aggregates people who will be interested in the things that you want to sell. So absolutely, that's a way for you to provide customers with a platform for the purchase to be made, especially on a low budget. As you grow, absolutely, you should get a website, but websites, they cost money, SEO, optimization, and so on. So at the beginning, I would just use the card acquirer's website to make that particular purchase. But if you have if you need certain help with setting that up, I'm happy to help. I'll give you my email, and you can make inquiries directly to me about any dropshipping queries. I'll just drop that email off. Are there any other questions about dropshipping? Otherwise, I'm happy just to talk about what I do. Dropshipping is one of the very many different projects that I do with the African Chamber of Commerce. I'll also give you my website. Yes, I can help you set up your dropshipping store. Yes, absolutely. Oz, I can do that. I can do that from the UK. I wouldn't be able to do that within China, because within China we'd have to use a different system. there are dropshipping setup stores in China. So within China, I'd have to know a little bit more about your business, especially if you're from overseas, the things that you're selling are from overseas. But outside of China, yeah, I'll be able to do that. You just send me over the information that you would tell me a little bit of information about your supply, and then I can set up that drop shipping within China. I need to know, because of the currency, because of you would need to set up an account in China. So that's definitely additional paperwork that you need to do.
Hi. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If you wanted to sell something from China by yourself, as opposed to using drop shipping, let's say you have your own business and you want to be the one who sends stock to your customers directly, just to sort of build a relationship and make sure you're sending the right stuff. What is the process like? Is it expensive? Does it take long? Stuff like that.
If I would say you definitely need a legal representative, because in that case, what happens is it's the payments. It's all about the payments procedure. Who you're going to pay, the logistics costs, and so on. So if you're shipping something from China, you've got to remember that you're dealing with exporters who only pay you're paying renminbi or dollars, or they'll most likely accept renminbi or dollars, unless you're dealing with a much larger shipping company, and then of course they'll take multiple currencies. The process is not hard. Obviously, now that you know me, the process is definitely not hard. But we'll be able to have some. It really depends on the item that you're trying to ship, whether the access is allowed within the receiving nation, and the volumes that you're shipping. You, as a middle person, circumvention is extremely annoying. So NDAs, which are agreements that you have in place with your supplier or with your buyer, are not legally binding. So you'll need to set up a different contract system, which is something I can help with as well. And it basically it doesn't guarantee non-circumvention, but it limits the non-circumvention, because that's obviously something that you want to prevent. So I see some other questions. Did I answer your question, or do you have?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, so I see some other questions in the chat. Jonathan Nwazu is asking, how did you go about finding a supplier? How do you go about negotiating wholesale price? Suppliers are readily available. There are lots of different websites for suppliers who are looking for access to different export sites. So you can contact, so for example, in the UK, there's Innovate UK. In Kenya, where I'm from, there's Kenya Trade. These websites have many different suppliers who are looking for exporters, or who are looking for agents who can give them the access to that foreign market. So agents are absolutely a crucial part of business. Do not worry about how important you are being a broker. Just don't be greedy. Don't hike up your prices too high. Otherwise, you'll definitely encourage circumvention. So hope you understand that circumvention is when your buyer cuts you out of the business and works directly with the supplier. So, but there are systems in place for agents. You know, people have been commodity brokers for a very long time. I think it's one of the oldest businesses. So don't worry about that. About negotiating a wholesale price, it's all about volume. When you're negotiating a wholesale price, it's all about volume. So for myself, you should have a figure in your mind that covers your expenses for doing the business between the buyer and the supplier, and the surplus of that expense is your profit. So when you're thinking about expenses, you're thinking about the logistics costs, the postage and packaging. Then you're also thinking about the time spent. So accessing the market, building the aggregating the buyers, setting up the virtual terminal, the maintenance costs. So and then you've got to think of that per unit. That's the best way to consider your profit. And then once you figure out the price per unit, your margin per unit, then you can extrapolate that based upon your minimum order quantity. I hope that answered your question, Nwazu. You can give me a thumbs up in the chat, or if you have other questions, please do ask them. I see here another question from Lumelo. Can I be able to drop ship from different suppliers? Absolutely, yes. The only thing limiting you from drop shipping from different suppliers is an exclusivity agreement. Maybe the buyer wants you to be the exclusive supplier for a product. If they want you to do that, you charge them. And you make sure that you cover your expenses for limiting your market to one supplier. At the same time, you can get money from both sides. Remember, as a broker, you can get money from the buyer who wants to access the supply. And at the same time, you can get money from the supplier who wants to access the market. So you have to be very important. You have to understand the supply chain, where you add value, and that's what defines whether you should go for exclusivity or not. So I see Bora. What is
okay? Now please tell me. Excuse me.
Yeah, go on.
Okay,
yeah,
so now, now in an instance where you are a startup and you're sort of like trying to suss out what is it that you can sell, because I mean, finding a niche, sometimes it's a journey, you know. So now, while you're experimenting with all of this, is it advisable for a startup to really have like multiple suppliers? And if so, is it okay to use wholesalers or direct factories? Because some factories pose as, I mean, some wholesalers pose as factories, when in actual fact, they are just middlemen. So is it advisable to have such conflicting relationships, or you can just sort of just start small with one supplier, and then with more experience that you acquire, then you then are able to bring in other people and have all this drop and go type of situations?
I understand this question.
I don't know if you follow, really. I don't know.
But in business, you have to remember that if you want to be a broker or a drop shipper, you have to have control over both sides. It's really important to have control. So by that, I mean, you either have to have control of the supply or you have to have control of the buyer. So it doesn't matter if you have control of the buyer, it doesn't matter where you get the product from, as long as it's the product that you want and it's coming at the right price. Yeah. If you have control of the supplier, it's best to get the factory, or because it's very difficult to it's very, very difficult to control the amount of stock. But if you are in control of the supply, you can have control over a title of goods. So a title of goods means it's the allocation of a specific amount that you want to sell. So let's say you have access to like 1,000 pieces of bedding, yeah? With that 1,000 pieces, that's what you want to sell. So you only need to deal with that supplier who has 1,000 pieces, and then you're selling that to anybody who can buy 1,000 pieces. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Correct. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. I see some other questions coming in here. I think yeah. So we've talked already about cost. You determine your cost based upon your expenses and your additional costs, overheads such as logistics, postage and packaging, customs clearance, and so on. So you have to figure that out depending on each item. Can a person have more than one store? Yes, I have multiple stores, but you know, if you have multiple stores, you need to have multiple teams. Each store needs to have a specific brand. So it's actually better just to have one store and then work with different brands under that one store. With the African Marketplace project, we work with over 10 different countries, different African nations, and each one of those African nations has hundreds of different suppliers. So the buyer will come to us to have access to all of those different suppliers. So that's what we do. At the same time, we'll go to the many different suppliers to provide our buyers with many different goods. So it's good to just be that one location. It's better to be one other than multiple. You can have multiple stores, but I would definitely recommend just to have one. Can I change the items in my store if they are not attracting customers? It depends on the order. It really just depends on the order. If you're trying to satisfy an order, then stick to that one order and sell as much as you can. But if you have multiple orders, then absolutely you can change items. But again, it depends on the order. You would need to give me more information about the order, and then I can accurately answer that question. Do you recommend items that are fast selling? Absolutely, I recommend items that are fast selling. Listen, this is one of the most, as a dropshipper, this is one of the most important things. In fact, as a commodities broker, this is one of the most important things. Most of the time, you're not working on a salary. Until you're very good, it's very unlikely that a supplier or a buyer is going to pay your retainer fee. So you have to move goods that are selling very, very quickly, because the turnover is important. You buy, you sell within a week or 2 weeks. If you cannot move the item within 2 weeks, then you are dealing with a product that is high risk. You're taking on a lot of risk that your business might not have access to credit for. So be very, very careful of that. I would encourage fast moving consumer goods or commodity. You know, commodities are naturally fast selling. People always want to buy those things. So I would definitely recommend that. What are the best options for shipping to the UK and EU for small startup dropship stores with small order quantities? Best options. I picked alcohol because I know that the UK and the EU, that's a very fast moving consumer good, especially because of the situation. But there are, and Lauren, that's a very good, important question, timescales. So one of the important things about alcohol is it's non-perishable. If you pick an item that is perishable, then you are working within a very short time scale. Fruits, vegetables. I sell fruits and vegetables. I sell them between 10 and 14 days. If I cannot get a buyer between 10 and 14 days, I won't have access to the title. I will tell the supplier, I'm very sorry, I wasn't able to sell that. Please move to another supplier and sell that, because the goods will perish. That's very, very important. So if you can sell non-perishable goods, focus on that. And then you said here, what are the costs and timescales? Again, it really depends on the item. As I've picked up, as I chose alcohol, there are no costs for me. I have access to business credit because I get the purchase orders. I go to the bank and show the bank I have these purchase orders. They give me business credit, and then I'm able to sell those goods to the specific customers. And then I make my money, and then I pay back that business credit. So, you know, it really depends on how much risk you're able to take and what is the purchase order cost? Like what are the figures on the purchase order? So you really got to consider that. It varies from product to product. And to give you an accurate question, I need to know what that product was. Okay, you're considering small gadgets and accessories. Again, small products could be USB pens, it could be mobile phones, it could be laptops. So yeah, it depends on how much risk your bank is able to cover. That's what I would definitely say. Take a look at the margins, the wholesale to retail price, and that's your margin. How much of that cost are you able to get from the bank? And then that should be able to help you decide whether it's actually worth the risk or not worth the risk. So I've got another question here from Oz. How much time do I need to spend when in the drop shipping business? I do it part-time. Only once a week when there's parties. I will say, okay, I know there's going to be a party. I'll put aside a few hours a day to get the supply, to get the media, so I can post the media within the party network. And then if I get orders, then I'll make the money and give the margin to the supplier. If I don't get the orders, then it's not worth my time. I don't have to waste my time on it. For other goods, it's different. So with commodities such as like metals, that's going to be quite difficult. You need a lot of information on the various metal margins and so on. But the same thing with agricultural commodities like fruits. You have to consider harvests, qualities, quantities. Packaging is very important. Different packaging will give you different margins as well. So, because different packaging give you different volumes give you different prices mean different margins. So there's a lot of different research that you need to do to put it out there. Oh, I see. We've got a message here. We're saying we'll be back in the main group in 2 minutes. So I've got to tell you that drop shipping isn't my day-to-day activities. In fact, I'm a business advisory. So my day-to-day, I'm helping businesses start up, register, access different markets. So as a broker, that's a really good way to support businesses. So that's how I got into international trade. But that's not what my normal within my normal day-to-day, I put on many different hats. I'm working with a tech company, helping they develop their ecosystem, their community. I'm also working with a TEFL recruiter. So a really good way for you to enter the Chinese market is to become an English teacher. So I'm helping people who can have access to TEFL. I'm giving them TEFL training. And then they have the money to have the risk to start their own business. So as I was saying, it's really important to understand the risk, the time you have to be able to pay for, to do the research, to do the marketing reports, to understand whether or not your product will sell. So you have to have the money to do that. Not everybody has access to business credit, so you have to make that money yourself. So yeah, I'm happy to provide that information. I understand a lot of people are going to be sending me emails. Absolutely, send me an email. I gave my email already. I'm happy. And also my WeChat is my name. I'm also on LinkedIn. Let me give you my WeChat very quickly. This is my WeChat, and my LinkedIn is my name, Sam Onanda. That's also my name. So you can add me on WeChat. You can add me on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to have lots of information about what we do.
Thank you so
Otherwise,
much.
I'll catch you in the...
Thank you so much. Sam, we have to go back to the main session. But thank you so much, and we'll see you in the main session in a second.
Yeah, I think we're almost all back now. Just give it 30 more seconds.
Yeah, I just want to say, I've given my WeChat in the chat. So if anybody who was in my group needs my WeChat, that's there. Also, my name is my LinkedIn. So you can add my name and add me on LinkedIn.
Sam, you're jumping the gun again. I was going to ask you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we were just going to kind of do a bit of a closing off there, but thank you for dropping it in there. I think many people ahead of the start of the event were interested in lots of the topics that we mentioned today, and because they weren't able to join every single group, I wanted to go through before we close off and just give everyone a chance, all of the panelists who were amazing, to just kind of give some closing words and any remarks, any tips, any kind of last bits of inspiration, and your contact details. So Sam, seeing as you started, you might as well continue there. I think you're still...
Yeah, sure. I'm just sending my email and my other stuff. Yeah, so in terms of closing, doing business in China, really depends on your network. Having a mentor help you along the way is very important. Black Livity China will be able to provide you with those types of mentors. Also, Black Livity China has a network called AndyNet. So that's a platform you can use to send goods, to buy goods, to sell goods. So having someone like Runico or having an organization like Black Livity China is really good for that as an initial company. Obviously, if you want to go big time in terms of going for nationwide sales, the African Chamber of Commerce has the network. We work with the China Association of Trade and Services, the China Council of Promotion of International Trade. These are large companies. So yeah, we're able to help you with that as well.
Thank you very much. Leisha, would you like to,
Yeah, the breakout room was wonderful, by the way. My closing words is just, I am so inspired just by the other entrepreneurs and those who even came today, just to see like Black excellence, like at its most in another country and dominating their market in their space. I think it's just a beautiful place to be in. So yeah, get all of our information for sure. And for me personally, I do coaching and mentoring, particularly for those in the hair business, but wanting to master marketing online and having a brand that actually speaks and knowing how to position yourself and market yourself. So that's something that I'm so passionate in and I will be doing. So yeah, do contact, and thank you so much Black Liberty for putting this on. We definitely should do this again.
Yes, 100%. I know you put your details in the chat, but for anyone who hasn't seen it or is on their phone, could you just tell us your contact?
Me, so I'm Leisha Liu on everything. So Leisha Liu on Facebook, Leisha Liu on Instagram, and me at leishaliu.com, but it's a hyphen, or just Leisha Liu. Let me just I'll put my emails in, but yeah, Leisha Liu on all my socials.
Perfect. Warren, I'll come to you next.
Okay, yeah, big thanks again for giving me the call to come through. It was really lovely. The breakout group was great, and shout out to Sam and the other Samuel. It was good stuff. But my last take on it would be, really do try China, because China have so much going for themselves. I think I said it in the breakout room. There's so much opportunity there that you should definitely try it if possible. And there's so many different ways to do it. And I'll be happy to help give you guys any more information on how to, if you're going for a small gap or a larger gap in that market. But it's definitely something to do. And what was the last thing? My details, I put it into the group, but it's warren.campbell.ac@gmail.com. If you want to email me, or the @Maybe it's in the group, it's in the chat if you scroll up. But if not, it's MEILI hair.co.
Awesome, perfect. And last but not least, Samuel.
Oh, you're unmuted.
Yeah.
He needs to be unmuted, yeah.
Oh.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. First, I'd just like to thank you once again, Black Liberty, for setting up this wonderful and innovative platform. I think it's amazing. I think we need to have this on a regular basis. For those that were in the group, thank you so much for your questions. I think that we should continue to speak. Any questions that you have that I haven't addressed, feel free to send me an email. I put my email down there. I'll also put my WeChat ID there as well. I think to bring everything down to perspective, over the last 5 years, there are basically 383 billionaires in China and 4.4 million millionaires. In addition to that, there has been 400 million people being taken out of the working class system and have been moved or shifted into the middle class system. Now, I bring those numbers and figures because that shows that there's still an opportunity for you to do business in China. And with how the world is playing out and how influential China is at the moment, that will continue to be seen in those different countries. And so there will always be opportunities for you to do business in China.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you everyone for attending, for getting involved, for being interactive. And the biggest thanks, I mean, there's two biggest thanks really, but the first biggest thanks is to the panelists. This has been amazing. This has been so insightful and really encouraging. We want to see this spread. We want to see more of us getting into entrepreneurship, more of us kind of being successful and passing this on to future generations. So thank you. In an industry that time is money, you guys have given up your time for free. So really, really grateful. And finally, also, just wanted to give a wave to the team as well. We have Sarah on here, who is currently dialed in from Ethiopia, from Addis. And we also have Inez, who's dialed in. I don't think anyone else is with us. I don't want to miss anyone, but we also have Inez with us from Israel. So thank you guys, because this is a team effort and that is what we are ultimately about. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you want to stick around, thank you. Yeah, if you want to stick around and drop your contacts or anything in the chat, then please do. I'll leave this open for about 5 more minutes, just for anyone to do that. And if not, then please stay tuned for the next one. And please do keep up with our speakers. Okay.